Welcome back again to another episode of the Well Woman podcast by RTS, and my name is Tammy, also known as Sandy Gloria. And today, people, we have a special guest on the episode. Her name is Ebiyemi Shola Okorodudu. She's a lawyer, she's a wife, a mom, and a fighter. AB's life shifted when she got the diagnosis for her son, and I'm gonna let her talk all about it. But today, this episode is about navigating expectations, grieving those expectations we thought we had about what motherhood might look like or what life would look like, even moving into a new country and starting a family, and also just rediscovering yourself in unexpected places and things that keep us grounded. So I hope today that you lean in, listen, and hi, Abby.
Hello, Tope.
Thank you for being on this podcast today. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I am honored to share this space with you, because that is what the Well Woman podcast is all about. Honoring our stories, and letting people know that we're not alone, right? Yeah. So, Abby, take us a bit back to before you got that diagnosis for your son. Like, kind of just give us a little background about you before all this.
So, my husband and I, we moved into Canada, I think it was February 2019. Mm-hmm. And it was such an exciting move. Like, we're coming to Canada and all of that. We went through the PR process and everything came, but I think as at then it was 2 years after our marriage, and we had no child. So we're still, very expectant and trusting God for a child. And I remembered we arrived in Ontario. Yeah. We at an aunt's place, and then I had my younger brother also who lives in Toronto, and my husband also had his younger brother then at Toronto. And then we went to, visit and, just to let them know that, we're in town and all of that. And I remember just back at home now, if you're trying to get pregnant, make sure you're taking folic acid and all of those, multivitamins. So I was like, okay, well, maybe now that I think I forgot so many. I was like, let's just go to the pharmacy and, ask for folic acid, And then we went there. I still believe the person that attended to us was an angel. Because, to be honest, like, we just went there, it's an over-the-counter medication, right? Yeah. And then this lady walked up and she was like, what are we looking for? I said, well, I'm looking for folic acid. She was like, why do you need it? I said, well, we're told, it helps to prepare your body for childbirth and all of that. And she was like, have you tested first? And I'm like, we are trying to, it's 2 years now. Why am I testing? I'm sure that if I'm pregnant, I will know. Yeah. She was like, no, maybe just take the pregnancy kit and check first. Yeah. And then if, there's nothing, you can come back. I can recommend some other multivitamins that will include, folic acid that you can have. I was like, okay. My husband was excited. I'm like, why are you? And, we just took our advice and bought the folic acid, and then we're at an Airbnb and went back. First thing in the morning, woke me up like, let's try this thing so we can go back. And we tried the strip and saw that I was pregnant.
Wow.
I was like, wait. And then my aunt was like, okay, I think you should go do a proper test and find out and all of that. And then on getting there, actually found out that week was going to make me 11 weeks pregnant.
What?
No idea. And when you're leaving Nigeria, you're selling things, you're running around, you're doing all of those stuff. Wow. Never knew that I was pregnant all the way. And that was it. That was the beginning of such a memorable time. And then we relocated to Calgary and just went through that pregnancy process.
So the pregnancy was seamless.
It was seamless, yes. We had towards the end, then, all manner of diagnosis, hypothyroid, high blood pressure, gestational diabetes. It was like I was hit with, with everything. I was just like, oh my goodness. But either ways, I thank God for the gift of a supportive husband. And of course, I had sisters. As we came here, we met some friends, and then, from there, just made that community and fit into that relationship. And through the pregnancy phase until childbirth, I had friends that were around to support us. Yeah.
So when was this diagnosis? What happened? How did this diagnosis come about with the autism, with the epilepsy? What happened?
So he was born October 10th, 2019. And just
COVID
COVID baby. And just this is January 13th, 2022. I still remember, like, that day is still very fresh in my memory. I remembered I was on the phone, so he's gone to daycare, he's back, and then I was on the phone with a friend actually who just called and said, "Oh, baby, I just had an encounter with the Holy Spirit," and was sharing. She just started speaking in tongues the day before, and the moment she received the Holy Spirit, her son also encountered the Holy Spirit, all in the car. So she told me about it, and we're just excited, talking and just praying over the phone. And then I just realized my son was crying uncontrollably. I'm like, maybe he's tired from daycare, he needs to take a bath and eat. And also I was like, he loves being in the water, like he'll play in the water and all. So I was like, okay, help him take off his clothes, put him in the bath, put water in, put some toys so he can play. But even in the water, I was still crying. I was like, thankfully my husband was also home. I was like, just, shower, I will give you food, and then you go and eat and play and all of that. My husband was like, I think we should pay attention to him. He's crying uncontrollably, like too much. So I got off the phone. I said, okay, I'll call my friend back. And we looked at him in the water. He wasn't standing with his two legs. He had one of the legs folded up. He couldn't even sit down in the water. And I was like, what's going on? So my husband picked him up, and once he held him, we noticed that that leg that was up was shaking. And then before we knew, his hand was shaking, and then up to half of his body. And I was like, so my husband panicked. He's like, you know what? You call 911. I will carry him and just pray. And I could feel him losing life at that moment. And that's how. And so he called the ambulance, and then the first responders, right, they came, and they told us that he was having a seizure. I was like,
from where?
Like, seizure, like, is he healthy? Yes. Has this ever happened? No. I was like, I said, okay, they have to just rush him, because then the seizure was, I learned usually it's about 5 minutes or thereabout. His was going for 10-15 minutes, a longer time. So that's how we're taken to the children's hospital, and then from there, that was a transition. Yeah, that was the curve that we never saw coming.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did you feel in that moment?
I think for me, I was just like, okay, God, what is going on, right? And like, we didn't see this coming. There was no, like, preempting or anything. What's the manual to handling this curve in your life, right? And I remembered when we were referred to the pediatrician, and we got there, and she was just like, oh, your son is epileptic. I'm like, what do you mean epileptic? I was like, oh, he and the type of epilepsy he has is called ESES. As at then, I learned it was a very rare form of epilepsy. So it's electric seizure or something in sleep. But this happens when he sleeps. So we don't even know when the seizure is happening. But when the brain activity has gone on for too long, then we see the bigger seizure. So the one we saw was a seizure that has been happening that we didn't even know.
Wow.
And after that, we even learned that while it ceased, but while he was in the ambulance, he had another seizure. And so as at the time he got to the hospital, he was halfway paralyzed.
Wow.
I was like, okay, God, it's okay. And then, going to the pediatrician, you would think that, okay, yes, we're going there for solution, but it was like the diagnosis was more of an excitement for her, because we got into the room. She was like, oh, this is how your son's brain is working. She started turning on and off the light switch, printed out a lot of materials, gave to us. say, this is a rare form of epilepsy, this is what is causing it, blah 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 blah. And then she was like, oh, by the way, do you know your son is also autistic?
By the way. Wow.
I'm like, okay, can you sort of slow down with the information? Like, how do you mean he's autistic? So we also realized that at a really young age, he was very intelligent with his letters, with his numbers. He would arrange shapes and colors, all of those things. And for us going for this appointment, we're like, okay, we need something to engage him while we discuss with the doctor. So, of course, we went with his alphabet and all of that. And she was like, I have a 2-year-old child and he cannot do half of what your son is doing here, And then she gave all of those information. And that moment, like, my husband, of course, that's not my son's. I said, it's okay, And then we took that report and got into the car, and the both of us wept. I have never seen my husband cry that way, but we held our hands, we wept. You're like, okay, God, we were not prepared for this. We don't know what to do, but with this report, and with our broken heart, we're presenting this to you. Whatever strength, whatever grace that we would need to navigate this season, you would help us. But there was one word we got even from that simple holding of hands, crying and praying. And God told us, he said, I've healed your son. Wow. And that was it. But even with that, we still had to go through several processes and all of that, right? And of course, still managing the whole, situation. But there's that strength that we have in the word of God that says, I've healed you. So I've sent forth my word and I've healed your disease. So that's one thing or one pillar that has held us together. Of course, my marriage one, and then parenting. Because a curveball like this has the ability to make husband and wife deal with their issues separately. Or even be in a situation where you are blaming, or you're the one that caused me. We're almost thrown into that. Yeah. Are you sure your family is not the one that has epilepsy? Or it's my family? Let's go and do this DNA thing.
I did that too. Trust me. I started tracing who in my home. I say, are you sure there's nobody that is in your family that is behaving like this? So how did that really impact your marriage? Tell me, the real.
The real, I know till today, one thing that my husband and I, we do a lot is talk about how we feel. We notice that it has helped us a great deal. Because, at a moment I was feeling like, I failed as a mother. Like, why is this happening to my child? At a moment I was feeling, okay, how do I even go out with this child and be able to associate with him as my child?
Wow.
And, you're in a community of young mothers. You're seeing other mothers with their children. Everybody is, normal. You go to playground, their children are behaving normal. And you're there with your own, like you're barely trying to help him sit still. Or even maybe their toys or so. That I remember being in a birthday party and, he was playing with his toys. And a child came and, took... Oh my goodness, you needed to see the tantrum and the flinging of hand. He was fighting that child. I was like, oh my goodness, took him out of the situation. I went back to the mother and had to explain. And I was like, God, how long are we going to explain our situation to people? To say, okay, I'm sorry that my child did this to your child, but okay, he has this situation. So, he also took us, my husband and I, speaking together and saying we don't owe anybody that responsibility.
That explanation.
And that, trying to explain or say, oh, pardon my child. I said, he's normal, it's okay, it's normal child delinquency, it's normal child behavior, everybody will be okay. But for my marriage, it was that openness, that transparency. We talk about things. If this is the way I reacted to this, why did I react that way? I would explain it to my husband. He would also explain to me. And then we would realize, okay, maybe this is where we need to adjust. But it took that open communication channel where you are not like, oh, I think I need to deal with this by myself. I remember telling my husband that I'm too weak to handle this. And so I'm going to need your strength as well. And he said, he's also my child. I know that, the man in me wants to mask the emotion and all of that, but I also feel wounded. I also feel pain. I think it took him admitting that to me as well to realize that, oh, we're both in this together. For us, that was it. We are in this together. If you are feeling shame, I'm feeling shame too. If you are feeling blame, I'm feeling blame as well. So I don't want you to mask your feelings. I don't want you to mask what you're going through. Tell me every time.
This isn't just a t-shirt. It's a declaration that I'm protecting my peace and I'm choosing rhythm over hustle. Yes, self-care is my birthright. And if you need to grab yours, you can go to our website, www.rtsbystandygloria.com, and shop our t-shirt. Self-care is not a luxury, it's not a necessity, it's our birthright. And whatever self-care means to you, that's what it is. Cheers to protecting your peace.
Wow. That it takes courage to be able to, really tell someone how you're really feeling. I think sometimes I still struggle with, being very honest, because I still sometimes don't even know how I'm feeling. I can't even process it with words, and maybe I just shut down, right?
Yeah.
So how has this experience, right, shaped your relationship with yourself? Because now the expectations you had as a mom, like, oh, I'm going to have a baby, we're going to do this. I don't know about you, but I did have all those expectations. We'll ride a bicycle at this age, we'll be potty trained. So how did that even change the relationship with yourself?
Oh, I think I still remembered one time when my doctor was like, okay, because I was getting really stressed and agitated, and then the whole blood pressure and all of that, and she's like, okay, I think you need to be seeing a therapist, and all. And I was like, okay, if that is going to help, But I remembered my first visit to the therapist, and she was even more like, oh, there's the autism community, there's this community, that you can associate resources and all of that. I say, yes, I know all of that. That's not what I'm looking for here. And so that was my first and last session in that therapy. So I had to sit down and ask myself, how are you feeling? And be able to sincerely answer myself. You know how they say the person that can be most truthful to you is you. And so I told myself, I was like, I think sometimes I feel shame. Sometimes I feel like I've failed, right? And then I had to go back to the drawing board to see what are those desires that I had even before all of this happened. And I was like, relocating to, I'm a lawyer by training, called to bar in Nigeria for over 11 years now, practice, and before I relocated. So it's like, my desire has always been to pursue law even in Canada and I had done the accreditation, everything. I think I still want to do that. I don't want to put my dreams on a hold and feel like this situation needs to define me. I want that tomorrow my son looks at his mother, my children, they look at their mother and they are happy for who they see her becoming, regardless of what life threw at her.
Wow.
So I told myself, okay, I might have been thrown lemon right now. I can make lemonade out of it. I can, look around me. What are those resources I can benefit from to deal, to manage this situation while at the same time trying to live my dream. So I had to, with the help of mentors, I had mentors who would speak to me and say, yes, you're going through this, but you need to be able to rise above it.
Yeah.
Because like you mentioned, I also adopted that shutdown mechanism. I shut down, I lock out everybody. I have a friend that once she's called me 1-2 times, I'm not picking up, she will arrive in my house and say, Madam, why are you not picking up your camera? I don't want to interact with the world right now. But then I realized that you need to come out to get help. You need to own up to say, okay, this is hard and I need help, I need support. So that was one thing that's been helping me to navigate this season. And of course, confide in people that won't make a mockery of you, but will understand that, okay, this is what you're going through and you genuinely need help.
So how do you pour into yourself?
I started something recently, working out.
Nice.
Yes, I've been, disturbing my husband. Okay, I need a treadmill in the house. I can't go to the gym. I don't have that time, and he travels mostly for work, so I don't really have that time to go to gym. But I want to do something that keeps my mind, active. So I started working out. And I'm a believer, right? I also serve in church as a choir member, singing. That also helps me. Beyond what I'm feeling, to be able to pour out into other people. So I also get filled up when I pour out into people.
Wow.
So that and then being active in church. And of course, I don't take my personal prayer and word study time lightly, because I believe that, that's my secret place. That's where I can be most vulnerable with my Father. And maybe it's an opportunity to also talk to somebody here, regardless of what you're going through. There's a God that, the word of God says that before you were formed in your mother's womb, I knew you. And so there's absolutely nothing that wants to come your way that your creator does not know. And so how do you navigate that unknown future? It's coming back to the one who knows the future and is able to hold your hand with his righteous right hand and lead you. So these are more like my mechanisms, for staying sane and for still looking like a normal person when you come outside.
I'm telling you, still looking like a normal person. Wow. Yeah. So what would you tell any person, not necessarily a woman, because I realize that it's both ways, right?
True,
it's not
true.
just a woman's swap, because even we as women, we still have men attached to us, our children, who are boys or girls. What would you tell someone who's navigating a season like this, that like, oh my God, I didn't expect this, like, and now this is what life is throwing at me, and maybe yes, I believe in God, or maybe I don't believe in God, whatever. What would you tell that person? Like, say you're telling Abby, like, at the start of your journey, what would you have told yourself?
I think my first advice would be, get a community. You need a community, whether it's friends, whether it's church, but people who are able to pour into you, people who are able to lift you up in your low season. Don't stay alone. Don't isolate yourself and say, this is my problem. Because I got to understand that I'm not the only one going through this. There are other people. And so your ability to speak up and associate yourself with genuine people can give you the help that you need. And even support, like sometimes you just want to go somewhere, you don't want to have your child with you. Please, can you help me look after my child? Or you're running late, can you help me pick up my child? Those sort of things. That's one. Secondly, I would say, oftentimes as women, or even the men, you mask up and say, this is okay. You'll be all right. Yes, it is. But sometimes it's okay for you to admit that it is hard. It would surprise you, in all of these years of going through this, it took just, I think last month or thereabout, for me to own up and say, what this is very hard. And I realized that was the beginning of my healing. Where God was like, okay, I've been waiting for you to get here and tell me that, okay, I can't navigate this by myself. You are doing therapy almost every day of the week. You have all of this schedule that, So I would say, ask for help. Ask for help. Build that community. And hold on to your God. Hold on to your faith. Hold on to that thing that makes you have peace in the midst of, the turmoil and all of that, the chaos. That's I think those three things. And then if you have, my last one to be, if you have a partner, please truly and really partner with that person. Don't feel like you have to take everything on by yourself. Because I had to learn that to say, okay, allow my husband to do this. You don't have to go for this appointment. Maybe allow him go with the child for this appointment. Take some time out for yourself. Ask for, sometimes you're married, and sometimes you have men who want to be told what to do. Before they know that they should do it. Please tell them. Please tell him. Say, bros, I need this help. I'm leaving this for you to handle, and trust him to be able to handle. Don't come back and try to rehandle what he has handled. Leave it.
Wow.
Leave it, so that he also feels like he's taking responsibility and making some progress. And that way, the person is also able to open up and do more things. Like, oh, I did this one well. I think I can push some more and take in more responsibility.
Wow.
Yeah, so pretty much, off the tips of my fingers, that's what I can.
That is very interesting. Don't rehandle what he has handled. I'm guilty of that. Don't rehandle what he has handled. Because I think maybe it has to just do with a little bit of you expecting perfection, or because of the way you do things, right? I'm taking that too as an advice for myself. Last question, AB. What does it mean to be a well woman?
That's a really profound question. I would say wellness is both internally and externally. And to be honest, I know I've said this over and over in this, conversation, but I am very big on community. Community of women who would cry with you, who would laugh with you, but above all, women who would lift you up in your low seasons. So what am I as a well woman? Or what does it mean for me to be a well woman? It will be for me to be planted in a community that is targeted at my growth both spiritually, physically, emotionally, and all of that. And women who, we're all seeking each other's growth and well-being. We're all seeking each other's progress. And that is what I would describe a well woman to be. One who is grounded. As a wife, you're grounded. As a woman, you are grounded. As a friend, you are grounded. As a support giver, you are grounded. So in any ways, you are, surrounded by a community of women who are willing to hold you tight and who are willing to support you to see your growth and development.
Wow, I love that answer. Thank you so much for being on this Well Woman podcast. Like, this is, even though I know your story, but it just brings more light to the things I didn't even know about your journey. So I want to say thank you for coming today. And well, people, that wraps up another episode of the Well Woman podcast. If anything you're taking away from today, get a community, and that is what RTS by Sandy Gloria is all about. Join the Well Woman Circle. It's a place where you get to be grounded in a community of women who will lift you up. Like she said, we pursue each other's growth. We don't see ourselves and say you are okay being where you are. No, we push each other because we know that God has made us for such a time as this. And what you think right now, this is the best version of you, that is not it. That is not it. And so when you're in this community, you'll be pushed to become the best version of yourself. So this is an invitation to join the Well Woman Circle. You can click the link in the bio below. And I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you know any mom or anyone who's navigating this journey, please share, like, and subscribe, and share this podcast with them. See you another week. Bye for now.